So who the hell is actually fighting this summer? Alright, so it seems like in the last couple of days, we've seen a bunch of rumors regarding who's fighting this summer and most importantly, who's going to headline UFC 317 and which fights are actually happening. Because I'm not gonna lie, it's been dead recently when it comes to official fights coming up. We have Bilal versus JDM for the next one at UFC 315, and then we have Merab and Sean 2 for UFC 316. Yeah, so it's not the best matchups coming up, so we need something big for the summer in UFC 317. All right, so with all the rumors, all the news, and all the tweets we've been seeing about potential fights this summer, let's go through all of them and see what potentially could be headlining UFC 317. Starting with the first big fight the UFC had in mind for this summer, and was pretty close to making, was the middleweight banger for the belt between Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. Ever since Khamzat ran through former champion Robert Whittaker and DDP definitively settled his fights with Sean Strickland, everyone knew that the next step for the middleweight division had to be DDP and Khamzat Chimaev. And it was pretty much a done deal apparently. Khamzat was posting his training and he looked like he was in camp. He tweeted he had good news, and most importantly, there were no strings attached with this fight, unlike some other big fights that could potentially happen. Dricus du Plessis said immediately after his second win over Sean that Khamzat was 100% next, and of course, Khamzat has been waiting for his chance to crown himself the best. Unfortunately, we learned on Saturday that Dricus is injured and will not be fighting Khamzat anytime soon, and of course will lead to UFC 317 not having a headliner for now. Alright, quick edit, and there's going to be a couple of these in this video as I've been editing this week. More news and more rumors keep coming out. With this first one, Dricus du Plessis is clarifying that there was no injury and there was no shin break, and he has discussed with the UFC a fight date and opponent. But apparently, it's not going to be a June fight, and it's probably not going to be Khamzat. I'm not too sure what this Instagram post means, but we're going to be seeing something soon. But anyways, the rest of this video was before that post came out. All right, while we're here, let's talk about the sponsor of today's video. You'll be really excited about this one because I actually use them a lot. All right, y'all, let's talk about DoorDash. So even before this sponsorship, I've been using DoorDash a lot, and I've been a huge fan of DoorDash because it basically saves me my most valuable resource right now, which is time. So as you may know, I'm a YouTuber, but also I am a software engineer as well. So between editing, filming videos, and coding, I'm extremely busy. So what I've been doing recently is basically timing my dinners to arrive right around when I'm done with my work, so that by the time I'm done with work, I get my food through DoorDash. I don't have to worry like I worried in the past of being dead tired after I work and then spending another 30 minutes to an hour ordering my food, getting the food prepared, and then bringing it back home. And not only does DoorDash deliver food, but using DoorDash, you can pretty much get anything delivered in your area, such as flowers, medicine, and practically, again, anything that is around you. DoorDash is your door to more. So download the DoorDash app to get almost anything delivered, and using code TJ50, you can get 50% off up to $10 on your first order of $15 or more. That is a great deal, and you can use the QR code or go to the description below. Thank you. Peace. Which sucks, because damn, I was really looking forward to this one, as I think DDP has the best chance of beating Khamzat. But outside of DDP, you know who else has a really good chance of beating Khamzat? I think it's Caio Brajalo, who apparently had a verbal agreement with Khamzat this Sunday, tweeting that Khamzat said yes and that this could potentially be for an interim title. Again, nothing has been confirmed, but this would be sick. Caio has trained with Khamzat before, and he has solid grappling and crazy power, and I think this should be a really fun one and could probably headline 317 and be big enough for casuals, since this would be a fighting nerd versus Khamzat. But for UFC 317, there could be so much bigger. Recently, we've been seeing a bunch of rumors regarding Ilia Topuria. For one, he's confirmed that he is in camp on Twitter, meaning he should have at the very least a confirmed fight this summer, and it's sounding like it's going to be the headliner for UFC 317. Now the question is, of course, who will it be? Ariel Helwani recently tweeted and also said on his show that Ilia Topuria will be fighting in June guaranteed. But the question is, again, who? Of course, the first fight that comes to mind is a fight with Islam Makhachev, the fight we're all waiting for, but he also suggested in that tweet that it could be for a vacant title. This would be crazy if Islam also pulled an Ilia and vacated his title to move up to 170, which would lead to 155 being fought over again, like we just saw with Volk and Diego Lopez. And even more crazy is that Islam would be potentially fighting a friend in Bilal if he does do this and Bilal wins against JDM. What I realistically think is going to happen is that Islam is going to wait for JDM and Bilal to duke it out before vacating and moving up to potentially become a double champ. But you know what would be even more fucking crazy is if Bilal vacated his title and then Islam fights for the vacant title against JDM, Shavkat, or Sean Brady, and then Bilal waits for Khamzat and DDP to eventually fight so that he gets a title shot next. Bilal did say that he was open to the idea of going up to middleweight and relinquishing his title so that his homie in Islam Makhachev can have the chance to become champion. And again, considering that Bilal and Islam are friends, they could plan that. And if that actually happens, that would be nuts. Ilia Topuria creating a domino effect of champions moving up, vacating the title, and changing the entire title picture for the weight class they left behind would be hilarious. But let's get back to who Ilia will probably fight in the summer. So okay, as much as I want to see, and everybody wants to see, Islam fight Ilia, Islam and his camp have been extremely adamant about Ilia not deserving the title shot because he hasn't beat anyone at 155, and they don't want to defend against another 145er. Apparently, this fight was also officially offered to them a while back, and they stayed consistent with that notion. Okay, so if it's not Islam and Islam vacates the title, who will Ilia fight for that title? I think that guy is Charles. Both guys want to fight for the title. Both guys spit back and forth to each other on social media. Now that Islam in this scenario would be vacating the title, well, there's a chance to settle the beef and fight for the title all at the same time. This fight would be violent between two superstars and would definitely be International Fight Week material. Now, what makes sense ranking wise is Arman versus Ilia. Arman was about to fight for the title, he beat Charles, and would make sense that the title should be fought by the #1 contender. But if the UFC really wants to make a big fight this summer, the only fight bigger than Ilia Islam would be Ilia Charles. All right, another quick edit. Islam Makhachev is apparently in camp, and like I said before, Ilia Topuria is also in camp. That can't be a coincidence, so we could be seeing Ilia versus Islam. I'm not too sure though. We'll see what happens. Apparently Ariel said we should be getting some news soon, but this is very, very interesting to see who Ilia is going to fight next. And technically, there's actually one more fight, one big fight that could happen this summer. Tom Aspinall versus Jon Jones has been in purgatory for a very, very long time, and I doubt it will ever make any movement. Now, there has been a rumor that Tom Aspinall and Jon Jones is a done deal and that they have a date and everything. However, the source is none other than Chael P. Sonnen, who isn't the most credible source, so I won't believe it until Dana screams it on IG Live. Okay, what did I say? While I was editing, Chael Sonnen comes out with this video saying that Tom Aspinall is actually not fighting Jon Jones. He's going to apparently fight Cyril Gane. I do not believe one word Chael says. I love Chael. He's hilarious, but I do not believe one word he says. I do not think Tom Aspinall is even fighting this year. And you know what's really stupid about this situation? I made a video almost a year and a half ago talking about Jon Jones ruining the heavyweight division, and fast forward to now, Jon Jones still has the heavyweight division completely stalled. And you want to hear a ridiculous stat? If Jon Jones continues to stall, he will be the technically longest reigning heavyweight champion, and this month, Tom has become the longest reigning interim champion. Jon Jones is only a couple months away from being the longest reigning champion, which is no coincidence that a couple months ago, he was 5 months away from doing that and claimed that he needed 6 months to prepare for Tom. What the sociopath is probably going to do is quote-unquote prepare for Tom for 6 months, but retire once he becomes the longest reigning champion before he ever faces Tom. It's funny because literally if any other champion did this in the UFC, delaying a super fight for practically no reason and stopping the unification of the belts, they would be stripped immediately. I seriously don't know what Jon has on Dana White, but it must be bad if Dana continues to gaslight everyone into thinking what Jon is doing is okay. So who is going to fight at UFC 317? I think that Khamzat and Kyle will probably be on that card, and it's pretty much a lock. Kyle tweeted out that Khamzat said yes, and Khamzat was already preparing for UFC 317. So again, I really do think this fight is going to happen this summer. Now, will this be the headliner for UFC 317? Ilia is in camp, meaning he does have a confirmed opponent and him headlining the biggest card of the year would make a lot of sense. Him versus Charles or him versus Islam would be a guaranteed headliner, so it really just depends on how Dana and the UFC want to treat and arrange the title picture with all these three guys. As for Tom versus John, though technically this fight could happen in the summer, I think we just have to pray this happens in our lifetimes. So, okay, what do you guys think is going to happen for UFC 317? Is it going to be Khamzat Chimaev? Is it going to be Ilia Topuria, Islam Makhachev? Finally, is it going to be Ilia Topuria versus Charles? Will we ever see Tom Aspinall versus John Jones ever? Not just the summer, but just ever in our lifetimes. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in UFC 317. There has to be a big fight, because there's no way these next two events with Merab and Bilal is all we're going to get and anticipate this year. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.